Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session
with your host, Michael Rearden.
Welcome, Chris, to the podcast. I would just love to today just be talking about your work, how you help people, etc. If you could, can you introduce yourself to the audience, and then from there we're going to have our conversation.
Yeah, so Chris Greco, former CEO, current executive performance coach, advisor to a few businesses, also keynote speaker, and also award-winning author of the book 8 Steps to Overcoming Adversity. And I just exited my company Storewise, and I am currently coaching and advising a couple tech companies. And as well, I'm doing keynote speaking on my book and really molding that into helping organizations become more resilient, because resilient teams simply win.
So one of the things I like to do is get down to the bare bones of things, because it's important for us to understand what the definition of something means to the author or to the individual. What is adversity to you?
Adversity is, there's 3 types of adversity. So there's 3 tiers. There's the everyday struggle, there's a temporary setback, and there's the permanent life-changing event. And adversity is like death and taxes. Everybody will experience adversity or hardship, setbacks, trials, tribulations. You can pick your synonym at some point in their lives. My mentor said to me, Chris, there's 2 types of people when it comes to adversity. There's those that have and those that will face it.
Powerful, because many people, they won't face it. They kind of allow their circumstance to define them. And I could think of something. I'm not going to say it because this is a politically correct podcast, but I could think about it, and I'm sure everyone is probably going to say, "Oh yeah, that's adversity to me." But it's something that we need as people. Yet many people don't want to dive into it. What is the pros to diving into the adversity and dealing with it rather than not?
Yeah, so adversity, I do 2 signature talks.
Okay.
And one of those is entitled The Adversity Advantage, because adversity is advantage. There's a proverb, iron sharpens iron. And people need, they need hardship, they need adversity, they need to look at the struggle as a blessing and not a burden, because you can't grow. I mean, think of any activity, task, or challenge that you really want to achieve or accomplish. That's easy, right? Whether you want to lose weight, you want to build muscle, you want to run farther or faster. It all requires training and overcoming getting to a certain milestone. Building a business. That's all very, very hard. And to really achieve the things that are meaningful in life, you have to overcome those setbacks. And I think that's central to anyone as a person who wants to achieve something meaningful.
Yeah. It says I always do my snooping when I'm going to have a guest on, so I can understand the person. It says that you were a triathlete also, correct?
Yeah, there's we can say that, yes. I've done 4.
Yeah, and it's not so much how many you did, sports and things like that. It's just more so the mindset is what I'm looking for today. I'm not looking to get into a whole conversation of your physical fitness background and stuff like that, sports background, but more so of the idea of adversity for training and fighting and things like that. Like, so we can look at Mike Tyson, for example, right? He just fought it was like 5 months or 6 months ago, whatever it was, Jake Paul or something like that, right? Yeah. So he had to go through a lot of pain. He's, up there in age. That type of adversity is very different than when he was younger. Now we can look at sports adversity versus maybe a business type of adversity. Now they have to grow the business. They have to maybe fight off the competition or get ahead of the competition, however you want to view it. Would you say, in regards, adversity has similarities and differences?
The
idea of adversity, like, for example, my adversity in business is, might be able to elevate my physical fitness or my sports type of adversity because I've already dealt with it, versus someone saying, I have to start from scratch because it's different.
Well, I think the principles are the same, right? How you,
Oh,
you
the
know, how
principle.
you look at it. The principles are the same. If you if you if you can expect it, right? Prepare your mind that there's going to be some sort of challenge here along this journey. So, like I remember when I was doing the half Ironman, so that is 70.3 miles. You know, I crushed the swim. I'm a swimmer. I crushed the bike. As soon as I got off the bike, my first mile running, I cramped up, and I had 12 and a half miles to go, right? And I cramped up. So what, so what do you know, I was prepared for it. I have a potassium shot, but my point is that it didn't, I wasn't surprised by it. And I didn't really, have a negative reaction like, oh, okay. Yeah, of course I'm going to cramp up, because it is an impossibility for me to have a great swim, a great bike, and a great run. And if it does happen, then great. But it's a mindset where you got to expect it. I mean, as part of the training, I wouldn't, no matter what the weather was, I would be out there, training. And thank God on the day I did the actual half Ironman, it was a nice, 75-degree day, sunny skies, dry. So it was good. And then, in scaling my last company, I mean, there are numerous setbacks. There were teams. The thing about building a company is just really interesting, because people think that when you set a vision and say, hey, here's the direction we want to go, not everyone unites around it. A compelling, meaningful vision not only unites, but it divides. And this is not a new concept. I think there's books written about this. And when it divides, then people leave, and some of those people, it hurts, right? Because you're scaling this business, you're building, and now you have the setback of having to recruit and hire. But if you're set up where you expect it and you're prepared for it, then you're going to be all that more successful.
Well, there is a process that you have, right? The 8 steps to overcome adversity.
Yep.
Where would someone begin on that journey to overcoming those difficulties?
Yeah. Step one, affirm I'm not a victim.
Mm.
And sometimes, the thing, I've gotten, email from some of my readers where, it sounds cliche. I'm not a victim, but I would actually, say that saying it aloud, doing some sort of act, maybe you write some things down that are holding them back and you burn it or bury it. I've had readers tell me that they would do that. So step one is affirm I'm not a victim. Developing a self-sufficient mindset. That's another important step. Developing a routine, using, I'm a faith-based person, using prayer as a gateway between panic and peace, right? Imploring your faith. I think that all matters, but a victim, woe is me mentality. And I'm not saying, there's times where you're going to feel that. And you might say to yourself, God, why does this have to happen to me? Right. And the quicker you can get past that, the better off you'll be.
It's funny that a couple of things I was thinking about. Number one, group 2 coaching and session. We had a group special podcast. I said the word victim, and I didn't mean to say the word victim. I meant to say culprit.
Yeah.
Saying like I did that, and I don't think of myself as a victim in any regards to anything. I don't think so. It's more so like, I'm culprit to that too. Maybe it's coming off work and you're so tired and your wife didn't cook, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go get some fast food or something. I'm not a victim of it. I did it. I'm the culprit.
That's an everyday struggle, right?
Yeah.
I had to go pick up dinner.
Mm-hmm. And so I had to shift that word out of my vocabulary. I had to basically say, not even by accident anymore, because it was so powerful. Like when I was listening to the episode, I was like, whoa. I was like, this is not helpful to anyone, because we're not trying to acknowledge people to be, victims and say, okay, I'm a victim here. Because even when someone's going through counseling, we can look at, women, for example, who might go through some type of emotional, physical abuse. And one of the things that they will go through their therapy session is, you're not the victim.
Yeah.
And so that's like step one for them. And it takes some time, of course, for them to get out of that mindset. Where would step two lead us?
Step two, convince yourself that you can learn and do almost anything. So it's about growth mindset, right? And we do have limits, but it's amazing what we can do. Is look, as humans, okay, there's no one that has come before you that is like you, and there is no one that'll come after you that is like you. So you are inherently unique. You're a child of God, and you have innate talents, and also you have the ability to learn and do new things. So having that confidence where you can say, look, I can learn this, I can do this. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort, but that's important. I can learn to get over this, as an example, right? That's step two. And then step three is develop a self-sufficient mindset. Step four is establish a routine. A routine is critical. Getting in the, whether, and for me, it's a morning routine, but you get into a routine, it just set, because not all hours in the day are created equal. You have, in the morning, you have peace, you have solace, and you have the ability to really, pray, reflect, really review what's most important to win the day, and establishing a routine is critical. So I'll stop at step four, and then I'll be happy to maybe in the next session go through the other four steps with you.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to touch base on the idea of limits, though. You said we all have limits, and I know you didn't not necessarily mean like we can't do things.
Yeah.
But it is a powerful statement to say that we have limits, but we can overcome them with practice, with diligence.
Yeah.
How would someone shift that mindset from the limited mindset that they were growing up in, and maybe believing? Because if you think about it, in school they don't necessarily teach you business. They don't say let's go to school to be entrepreneurs and let's go, and be these CEOs. It's more so of, all right, get a 9 to 5 job. Make sure you get some nice health insurance and stuff. You get 2 weeks off a year. 65, you get to retire. Hopefully, by that time, you have your house paid off and you can retire and you can live for the next 10 years happily before you die. And I mean, that's a very blunt way to say it, but that's essentially the American dream that is being thrown out to people. But there is something hidden within the American dream. It's the potential to be more than what that initial dream was. To be the CEO, to be someone who to defy, to dare greatly. Essentially, the idea of limits is something where it's like, well, everyone else is doing it. Maybe I should follow along too.
Well, I mean, you just got to pave your own path. And when I say limits, if I say, look, I'm going to become a pro basketball player at the age of 45. I mean, come on, we got to be realistic, right? So when I say, I think what limits is that people really put governors on themselves, meaning that they really inherently believe that they can't do things that they really can do. Learning like a new skill, training and achieving a half Ironman or an Ironman, right? Swimming, 100 laps, becoming a CEO. I mean, look, I can tell you, I mean, I tell my wife this all the time, is that, I was 15 years old when my father passed. I watched my childhood priest give him his last rites. And I mean, I wasn't thinking about it then, but if a teenage boy, who lost his father, really didn't have, much financial resources, had a phenomenal mother, who really helped us, supported me and helped, myself and my two siblings figure things out. If he can make it, to the pinnacle of a business, which is the chief executive officer, I think anyone can. And you just have to have that determination and drive to go after it. And you can't make excuses, and you just have to do it. There's a lot to say by when I say that convince yourself that you can learn and do almost anything. The learning and the doing is critical. You have to take action. And then while you're doing it, there's another key word in the book called endure, because you got to endure by doing the hardship and setbacks that you're coming across to really, build that resilience to accomplish what you set out to accomplish.
Very true. Most people don't like pain. They don't like change. They don't like to be uncomfortable for any given amount of time.
Yeah, it's part of the
And
experience.
yeah, it's very human, and I don't want to belittle being human to people,
Yeah.
because we all have a plethora of emotions that we're going to feel every single day. We're going to feel maybe high, maybe low, right? And we can
Yep.
use those high moments to do great things. We can also use the low moments to do great things. Alternatively, we can do the same for the negative. We can use those high moments to say, things are good. Let me coast.
Yep.
The negative moments to stay in your bubble, to stay in your room, and to kind of flick on the TV or something and just kind of remain, where you are. And it goes into one of the words you use, determination. How would someone, ignite that determination within them if they feel as if they are plateaued?
They got to find. I think a key word is resolve.
Hmm.
Right. When you resolve yourself to do something, and you really commit to it, inside that word resolve is also discipline. And you have, it's a matter of those who apply, the resolve and the discipline to achieve, what they set out to what they want to achieve. That's what matters. And there's not it's not to be given to you. I mean, again, it sounds cliche, but it's hard. It's hard to have to start something and finish. I mean, Denzel Washington in one of his, I think it was when he won one of the BET awards. He's won so much. He made a statement: without commitment, you'll never start, but without consistency, you'll never finish. And you have to, people focus on, getting the top of the hill, but they don't focus on the climb. Right. And you got to embrace the climb, which is a process. And I think that's what the process is almost more important than the outcome.
Mhm. I think the last bit of that is fail forward.
Yeah.
He basically says to fail forward. Failure is not that you're taking a
But you
step back
learn,
all the time.
right? You learn yeah. I hear. I mean, I kind of agree with that with you, Michael. People, I think we're also part of the culture where we're celebrating failure too much. You got to have successes, right? And we'll give somebody a pass for failing once, twice. But I mean, I see, we're some case we're celebrating, the third or fourth fail. It's like, well, that now seems to be like a little bit, of a problem when you're failing the same thing over and over again. I don't believe that should be necessarily celebrated. You got to apply it because there's something else I think that's broken there.
100%. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
If you're failing, there's something stopping you
Yeah.
from achieving. Now, sometimes it could be self-sabotage. It could be that you're not giving your utmost.
Yeah.
You have accepted this. It's like, oh, if I fail, I'm used to it already. So you stay there. There's complacency. Failure, like some people are afraid of success, believe it or not. So
Yeah.
they won't go for it because, failure feels familiar. It feels okay. I'm okay right now. And it's
Yeah.
not until, they hit rock bottom, maybe do they start trying. But at that time, like, how far behind are you? So you do, 100% correct. We do have to look at the success at the successes too. I think what Denzel was saying though, in this quote is what I was referring to, is when you fail, allow that to be a lesson for you, more so than embrace the failure as, okay, this is my reality. I'm going to acclimate to it, kind of like the saying or the science project, whatever it was. If you put a frog in hot water, it will jump out. But if you gradually boil the water, the frog will cook itself
Yeah.
because it basically, it's getting warmer. Okay, let me stay here. So I think that was what what he was trying to say at least.
You have
but
to.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. You have to reflect and learn from it. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. And then going into the next steps, we stopped at, I believe, 4.
Yep.
So we are at 5 to 8.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's what I would encourage like your audience to buy the book. In fact, here's what I offer. I offer this to anybody at a podcast. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's listening to this that buys the book, it's on Amazon, or you can go to my website, grecospeaks.com, and you can buy it directly. My email address is on there, Chris@GrecoSpeaks. If they read it and if they email me, how maybe it impacted them, I'll send them a signed copy so they can take the one they bought and pay it forward to somebody else who needs it. Mm. That's all I'll do.
Okay, so let's keep it a secret then. These next steps, so it could be a surprise for them.
Four, pretty good. I mean, it's a process, right? It doesn't happen, overnight. I mean, to really, really believe that affirming I'm not a victim, that takes time. Yep. Convincing yourself that you can learn and do almost anything, developing a self-sufficient mindset, establishing a routine. Those are the first four. There's a lot of insights there. And I use my own personal stories and stories of others that are not well known of other people that I think that will inspire, the readers to act.
Yeah. I just like the idea of, it's always something someone can learn, and it's going to take time for people to kind of begin. For example, someone's starting at the gym day one, it'll be irresponsible for them to bench 315 or something. Like if you have a trainer and they're making you do that, okay, whatever, but it's dangerous. Your body's not ready for it, so you have to build to it. And like going through steps, I think is important, rather than saying, okay, I know the end. Stephen Covey says begin with the end in mind. So a lot of people are looking at the end, and they are so daunted by all of the steps to get to it that they say, you know what, the end, it would be great, but there's no shortcuts to that end. Yeah. So most people don't even start. So definitely starting with these four steps is going to be a great place to begin. And as you said, number one, taking away that victim mentality, victimhood type of mindset is going to be huge, and it's going to be maybe a huge task for some people. So begin there. One of the things I want to ask is, as you said, you have some stories. You don't have to give any stories from the book or anything, but where was something that someone has overcome adversity that really rung true to you as like, whoa, if they could do it, why can't I?
So there was, it's one of the stories that are in my book. There's actually two. I'll talk about one. He's my mentor, but my former CEO. He actually, a lot of my behaviors and principles and skill sets as a CEO, I absorbed from working for him for 7-8 years. He grew up, middle-class family. They own a convenience store, and he overcame, he built, he's building a second company. He's done exceptionally well. But he actually read the Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm dating myself, cover to cover, because he absorbed so much. And he just had an innate ability to learn and remember things. And he really applied himself to the point where he went to one of the best colleges in Canada, and then actually went to Harvard Business School before he started his first company. But he was an amazing role model for me to follow, because he was not only a big brain, but he took that talent that God gave him and applied it, and has become a massive success in the tech industry.
Why would you say some people allow their circumstance to say, hey, this is who I am? I'm a convenience store owner. I'm not a CEO. I'm a son of a plumber. I'm not a CEO. My dad left me, so I don't know how to be a man. Like there's so much different types of adversity, and many people who don't see something better to strive for, as you did with, working with him, with, you said 7 to 8 years or something like that. Yeah. So, like people don't have mentors like that today. So it's almost like they are going blindly, and hopefully they can get a teacher, or they can get a coach, or they can read a book that, can really say, hey, like pay attention. Like this is what I accomplished. You can do it too.
Yeah. I would seek out mentors. Like when I found somebody who said, hey, that this is a successful person, I would sit and like, what can I learn and what questions can I ask you, right? And I think that's that's important. So people should seek that out. And look, there's a convenience store owner. That's a hard, noble profession, right? The child who I think you said who's did maybe dad is left. That's tough. I mean that's very, very tough. But there's many success stories of kids who grew out within a single parent household that's been successful. I think because the parent was very, very strong, but that kid was also determined. But I also am almost willing to bet that there are people in their lives that actually stepped in, that either they stepped in or the child sought them out to help them overcome that circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
But the seeking out is important. The really attacking the problem, fiercely. Like, how do I get out of, this situation and staying committed to it. Going back to what I said before, about consistency, right? Working on it every single day. That's what matters.
Very true. I don't know if you know the story of Little Wayne when, growing up, his father was out of the picture.
Yeah.
So his name was Dwayne, and basically he took out the duh and just went with Wayne. So that's why he's Little Wayne now. That's just a little bit of that. But then he had a situation where I guess he got shot or injured or something, and when
With
the
the
cops
police
came
officer?
in or something, weapon.
With a police officer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So watch that interview.
Yeah, and so like that's basically you know an eye-opening experience for for so many people. It's like everyone not I'm sure not all the cops did it, but he was specifically talking about, I think his name was like Bob or something.
Yeah.
He's saying like this officer didn't step over me like the other cops did. He
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I was good, took me to the hospital, and so there's people like, and then after that he gave him a job and everything. um but he learned from him also. It wasn't so much of you saved my life,
Yeah.
you owe me. It was like, what can I learn from you too? So it was a two-way avenue.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that story. Yeah, that story was he told it on I think it was an ESPN interview.
Mhm.
Right. Everyone should go Google a Lil Wayne ESPN story. I think that's the you'll find it, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it just goes to the idea of being humble also. When I was 18, yeah, I was 18, I started working in business finance. This is what I thought I wanted to do. And so I worked at Sikorsky. They build the Black Hawk helicopters for the United States Army.
Yeah.
And I was working just in business finance at the time. And so I had some wonderful mentors, learning from them and everything. I learned what to do and what not to do. And
Yeah.
it was, being 18, like you would think that, everything. It's like, sure enough, you don't. You step on a lot of landmines. And sure
Yeah.
enough, you have your mentors and your managers there to say, okay, well, let's
Yeah.
look at this situation. Let's navigate it a little bit differently next time. And sure enough, I don't make any of those same mistakes that I would, initially starting off. But if I didn't have those type of supervisors, those people who allowed me to make mistakes,
Yeah.
oh man, I'll be in a different place today.
Yeah.
One of the questions I want to ask is, what would be a question someone can ask, maybe someone they look up to, a mentor, about business growth? Let's be like very specific, because it could be about dating, it could be about anything, but
Yeah.
about business growth specifically.
I think the number one, in my view, the best leaders are growth leaders. They know how to not only grow a company, but if you're growing a company, you're also growing people. I think one of the biggest questions that you could ask any leader who has that level of responsibility is how do you ignite and inspire your people? I think that's the number one question, because businesses they're built on people. And, I think the Southwest Airlines model, started by founder Herb Keller. He put the employees ahead of the customers. And I think that's a great model to follow. And so the question that I would ask for me, aspiring to go into business is that how do you inspire people? How do you inspire, how do you inspire them where they're really motivated on Mondays, where they're sitting there in bed Sunday night saying, I can't wait to wake up and come, and go to work on Monday. That's a rarity. I think it's less than 15-20% of the world's workforce that are really excited about their jobs. And that's on leadership. It's on leadership.
So would you say a company's success is wholly determined by the leadership, or is it the bits and pieces that make
Yes.
up the company?
No, I mean, people argue, but I mean, I can tell you, I took over a company that was headed towards bankruptcy. There was a CEO there, and a great person, right? But I took over a company with the same team for a while, the same market for a while, the same product for a while, the same customers for a while, and we scaled. So I think it is the role of the leader to really, drive, performance with and through the people in the organization. So I'm not, I mean, any CEO that points to, well, the reason why we're failing is because of the people. No, not 90% of the time, 100% of the time. That's wrong. And that person should not be, if that's their approach, that person shouldn't be in the role.
Have you ever read the book? It's called The Goal.
Yeah. And
The
business,
idea,
in
yeah,
business,
what happened?
in business school, I read it. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, basically, the idea of the book, just as a quick refresher, is there was a guy who was CEO of a company, and the company was leading to the stores being shut because it wasn't producing enough.
Yeah.
So he basically went on a journey to how he can maximize throughput for his company and basically maximize profit. And so it was that journey of where he was able to get more sales with the company, things like that, get rid of some of the backlog.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think he inherited the company also.
Yeah. 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 I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to the leadership team that as the determinant of, of whether a company is going to be successful. And great leaders take 100% of ownership of failure, but they give praise to everyone else except themselves when they're successful. Politicians do the opposite. I mean, you see that with in LA with these horrific fires, right? I think leadership is a noble, humble. I almost want to call it a vocation. If the great leaders see it as a vocation, because the power of your words, the power of your actions, you can change and do a lot of things. It's up to you whether that change and the doing a lot of things is for the good.
There's a book. It's called "Leaders Eat Last." What do you think of that idea?
Who's is that a Simon Sinek book?
And it probably is. I forget the author. I can look it up, but
I get it. I mean, it's common. I mean, I don't recall Simon ever building a company, and I've never read the book. But
it's Simon.
Yeah, the concept of if the concept of that book is really leaning in, supporting and empowering your people, then I totally agree.
But the general statement of eating last, because I'm not necessarily talking about the book. I'm just talking about the saying.
Yeah, well, look, I can tell you this is that my brother, he served 3 tours, in Afghanistan, the army, and it's the opposite. If your leader goes down, the platoon is in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they would subscribe to the same thing.
I don't think they would, because if you think of like even during like colonial times, and like even like during the dynasty era, and like like China, like over in Asia, they would go for their leaders. And basically the leaders will be so well protected because they understood without them, because the leader was surrounded by their strategists, everyone, so they can win the battle. Versus of, okay, we're just going to make sure everyone's gone and then we're going to get the leader. Everyone would try to get to the leader, but they were the most well protected, so they didn't eat last. So it's a very different mindset how it was in the past versus today, and how people view leadership, because people think they have to be selfless sometimes to.
Well, here's what I would say. There's a lot of theories out there. In all the trainings I do, I always, in books that I read, when I talk to people, I'm like, look, you want to be, before you look at a title, or you're listening to somebody, check out, what they've done. What they've done. Like in my book, 8 Steps to Overcoming Adversity, I've overcome a guy. I had to deal with, 2 permanent life-changing events. So it's not like I read a book and now I'm spinning it and applying it. I like people who've done those things. It's going to get loud in my house here in a second because I got kids coming home from school.
No problem. We love kids here. I don't know if you saw any of the podcast. Sometimes kids would come in and the parents speaking. And
that's awesome.
I said they're in the show now. Bring them in. Bring them in. So I'm a parent myself. I understand.
How many kids do you have?
I have two.
Nice. How old?
Boy and a girl. How old? Two and a newborn.
Oh, good for you! Congratulations. Those are fun times.
Yes, a lot of fun. Yeah. Too much fun. He's jumping on me, fighting me.
You don't have any bags under your eyes yet.
Well, I get my sleep.
Good.
I get my 6 hours. That's all I need. Plus, I go to the gym. I eat healthy. I'm active enough, and I'm extremely present in their life, because I understand if you don't pay attention to them now, they're not going to pay attention to you later. And I would like for them to be around when I'm,
that's great
still
advice.
Doing my thing. When they got grandkids, when they got their kids alone, I want them to bring the grandkids over. I don't want them to feel as if they, graduated from mom and dad's house and they can't come back anymore.
Yeah.
Think of high school. Like, have you ever been back to your high school?
They had, I have. They actually, I went to a Catholic high school in the inner city of Miami.
Okay.
And if you know anything, Miami's just boomed. And every piece of land is like of high value. So they actually the archdiocese sold my high school. Mm-hmm. And developers are knocking it down, and they're supposed to put up another school, maybe, I don't know, maybe a boarding school or something, but the land is still underdeveloped. But I had a lot of good memories from my high school.
Yeah, only times I went back were like, because I didn't know what to do after I graduated, and plus we left like 2 weeks early or something like that. So I was like, what do I do? So we would go to school, and then this, like, the assistant principal was like, "What are you doing here?" It's like we didn't know where to go, so so we would just go walk around downtown or something. And then my sister was still graduating 2 years before me, so I had to go for her graduation, etc. So I went back, but it was I live in Texas now, and my schools were in Connecticut. So me going back there is very different. Plus, my elementary school doesn't exist anymore. It's a different type of school that got renamed. But it's the idea of moving forward, though. It's basically what I'm trying to talk about. And adversity, if we look at it in the sense of of our conversation today, it is moving forward, right? So we have a hardship, we have a struggle, we have a challenge, and we move forward from it. Not so much of remain in the past. And sometimes people do cling on to that past and they embrace it maybe a little bit too much. Sometimes it happens with the jocks, for example. Like, they look at it as the golden age. Like, I remember when people loved me, and now I'm like a paper pusher or something, let's use an example. And so they feel as if like they're going downhill and they don't do anything to kind of uplift themselves to go uphill once more. What would be something motivational or inspiring that we can give that individual to say, you know what, like, I don't have to keep going downhill anymore?
I don't want to sound cliche again, but it's adapting to a growth mindset.
Okay.
Understand.
Number 2, right?
Yeah. It's really number 2. I mean, when you that idea of like, hey, I've done what I had to do, I have nothing more to give. That is a fixed mindset. It is a fixed mindset, and that person, if you're talking about like just take like say it's a Division I, college athlete, maybe I actually Inky Johnson, he played for Tennessee, and he's a speaker. He's in my book. I think he was his 9th or 10th game of his senior year where he suffered a paralyzing injury to his left arm, and he was going to be drafted in the NFL. And now he goes around, talking about, okay, this is my path now, right? This is my path now. Speaking about how I'm overcoming this permanent life-changing event. And I think, again, look at situations, circumstances, our positions in life, not as a burden, but as a blessing. And how overcoming it is just going to, make us better, not for ourselves, but for everybody around us.
I have a faith-based question. I don't know if you mind, but I'm going to ask it.
Of course.
The faith-based question is, when something like that happens, right? Like his left arm's paralyzed. One of the things he might be saying is like, God, why me? Like, why not someone else? And sometimes it's not our plan that we we get to live. It's his plan. And so the question is our plan, what we have for ourselves, or what we idolize as our destiny?
Yeah.
Something that, I don't want to put it without being too crazy.
It's not crazy. It's good. This is a good conversation.
Yeah. It's like how can we step away from that destiny aspect and go toward God's aspect of his plan versus our plan? Because because at that time it feels like my plan is not going through. This happened because I'm following your plan now. So it's almost like resentment.
Yeah, that's okay. Jeremiah 29, God has a plan for us. There is only one plan. We create all this anxiety in ourselves when we're not feeling we're at our necessary maybe stage, in life, or the question of why me. It's like, why not me? Because God knows you can handle it. That's why. But to be able to go ahead and go to the realization that, hey, this is not my plan. My plan's okay, and just like, hey, God, what do you have for me? I want to, every day wake up, understand that if I can, fulfill what your plan for me, then that is a great way to live. Because even for somebody who's not necessarily faith-based, to understand that there's some being that is bigger than ourselves, I think is a very healthy aspect to have. When you believe that nothing is bigger than yourself, that is destructive. That is certainly destructive. And when you look at depression, long-term depression, there are some exceptions. So I'm not, saying that that's necessarily unrecoverable, but people who are really faith-based and believe in something that's not only them, and it's about helping the person next to them, is just such a healthy perspective to have.
I just can't get over the idea of it is adversity for them, because they have a choice to make. Like, I can allow this injury or this circumstance to define me, or I can say, you know what, let me figure out to do with what I have. And so many people, they just get stuck. I think of the story of Dan Mill. It's one of my favorite stories. He was a gymnast, and he wanted to go for gold. I'm not sure if you ever read the book, The Peaceful Warrior, or watched the movie.
I have.
It's basically talking about his story of how he was in a motorcycle accident, and he shattered his femur, his leg, I believe it was his left leg. And he basically was told by every doctor, he was told by his coaches, you're done. You're never going to compete in the Olympics. You are not going for gold. You're just going to maybe be able to walk again with a cane or something, right? Mm-hmm. And he had a mentor that he called Socrates, but it was just like a philosopher guy. And he basically said, what's your dream? What's your goal? And he basically said, I want to win gold. And so he worked with him to get back his mobility and to get back on the rings because he did the, like the rings and stuff.
Yep.
And sure enough, long story. I don't mean to break it to you, but he wins gold. And so he went against all the odds. He went against the doctors. He went against the motorcycle accident. He went against his coaches, and he said, "I'm still doing it because I believe that this is for me." And
Yep.
sometimes something happens that is almost like a detour, where you hit a dead end. And you're like, "I guess I have to go a different way." But he was like, "No, I'm going through because the gold is there." So
Yep.
so it was a different mindset for him. Is there ever a time when someone should look at the signs and say, "Okay, I guess this is a sign to give up or to stop"?
I would say that if you think it's time to give up, you're right. If you think that it's not the time to give up, you're right.
Hmm.
That's what I would say. That's what I would say.
So,
to that question.
yeah, was Napoleon Hill or something? Whether you believe you can, you think you can, you're right or something.
Exactly.
So, yes,
Exactly.
it's something along those lines.
Yep.
I butchered the quote a little bit, but it's very much similar to that.
Yeah.
But definitely, like when it comes to adversity, there's so many steps you have to get over. And some people, they're going to be in different parts of those steps. Some people might have passed, the victim. They might have the growth mindset, but they might be in, somewhere there, and they get stuck. And I'm almost certain your book gives great direction for people to get unstuck when they are.
Yeah, and also it's a very I'll also meant it's a very quick read.
Okay.
I mean, I was writing it, I was writing it for a couple years, mostly on, flights, 3-hour flights mostly from Kansas City to San Francisco. And, because I was traveling there quite a bit, and, you can read it in roughly 2 hours. There's the story, the 8 steps, there's place in the book to write, to reflect and write. It's meant to be more of a handbook on how to overcome adversity.
Perfect. So there should be no excuse why people have to stay in their moments of adversity and stay stuck.
Well, it's going to happen. I mean, we're human, right? There's a human factor, right? I think the more times you overcome it and go at it, the easier challenge, the future setbacks and hardships as they occur, the easier they'll be to overcome.
Very good point. Well, Chris, I definitely 100% love having a conversation with you today. And what I would love, if you can give us some final words, something the audience can take away with, and then please plug your book, of course, where people can find it, Amazon, etc., and also any social links, websites where people can inquire about your work further.
Yeah, so I would I would go to grecospeaks.com. Everything about me, the book, how I approach executive performance coaching is all there. There's highlights of my keynotes and coaching sessions for your audience as well. You can find me on all the handles, Facebook, Instagram. You'll find me at Go Greco there on social, and on LinkedIn under Chris Greco. But if you Google 8 Steps Adversity, I'll come right up, top of the list. And it is on Amazon, but the single source to go to, easiest for your audience to remember, is grecospeaks.com.
Perfect. And I'll make it easy one. It's the first link right below. Easily check you out. And I didn't really want to dive too much into the idea of executives, because the word executive is so powerful in the terms of someone who might not be an executive. And so it's almost like an off-putting word for some of the audience. Like I get emails and stuff. So I didn't want to use the word executive, because you might not be an executive today, but it doesn't mean you won't be an executive yet. So
Exactly.
With the right mindset, with the right training, with the right knowledge and wisdom, we can pave that way to that type of mindset that can lead you to great things in your life. So I do want to thank you, Chris, for coming on, spending some time talking about your work in your book today, and then also being that mentor, that beacon that people can look at and say, if he can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Really enjoyed the time.